everybody, Sean.
Okay, good morning. I would like to call the February 25th, 2021 Columbia 911 Communications District meeting to order. We do a roll call. We have Commissioner Heimuller on the line.
We see him. He's
Okay.
muted.
And Mr. Anderson, I saw already. And let's see.
There he is. And we have Bruce Halsey.
Good morning.
Morning, Henry.
How are you?
You're well.
Good. Mr. Holsley is in person then?
He is.
Okay, great.
Dave Crawford is absent, ill. Staff, we have Nathan, Nancy, Mary Jo, myself, Keisha, and I think that's all, right?
Chandra and Laura.
Oh, Laura's there. There she is. Okay.
Welcome, everyone. I trust we all made it out okay after the storm. It was quite an unprecedented event. Another thing of unprecedented for our 2020/21.
Yeah.
Let's get right into the agenda here. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? Hearing, are there anything in the chat? I guess that's one place I don't know to look.
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing no public comment, I will call for any additions to the agenda. Anybody have any additions?
Question for Mary Jo. Did an updated agenda get posted this morning with the add-on of engineering contract?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
Somebody turn
Okay.
speakers.
Any other additions?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we'll move to the approval of January 28th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move approval.
Need a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Bruce will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the January 28th, 2021 meeting minutes. All those is there any discussion?
I just want Mary Jo know that I'm going to abstain from the vote, being that I was not present for that meeting.
Got it.
Okay. Looks like we still have a quorum to vote on that. So I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion, oh, I was an aye as well. I'm on approved. Motion carries. Okay. Financial reports. We have acceptance of the budget variance.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the budget variance report as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the budget variance report as presented. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think I heard Bruce. It's kind of hard to hear Bruce there. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Jumping around here on my tabs. Bear with me. There we go. All right, the approval of expenditures. Should have this down by now.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
If you didn't hear that, Sean, Bruce said that he would make the motion to approve it.
Got it?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the expenditures as presented. Is there any further discussion on that?
I did have just a question. That was on the check number 30049 MNI microwave upgrade. Can you refresh my memory on that $33,000 expenditure?
Yes. So that should be the last invoice for the microwave upgrade between Clatskanie and Green Mountain.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go for it.
All right, 30014, Day Wireless for our quarterly maintenance. Just want to ensure, since we're kind of looking at that closely, that staff is happy and we've gotten the adequate reports.
We do. We get a monthly report of the PMs of all the sites. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, to repeat, it's been moved and seconded to approve the expenditure report. Looks like we, as presented, with check number 29996 through check 30052, including electronic payments and transfers for a total of $298,769.76. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sometimes the internet service out here in Global can be a little sketchy, but we've had a good run here for a while, so I just jinxed it. Okay, operations manager report. Laura?
So we had interviews yesterday. We only interviewed 2. We're going to move 1 forward into backgrounds, and I'm going to be looking to open up a new recruitment here in the next week or 2. As far as the inquiries go, we just had 1. It was sustained behavior. And then we have Keisha working on a bunch of the spring training curriculum, putting that together. We're going to have that the end of March, beginning of April. And then also just making sure employees are getting their research on time, and we're all current on that.
Excellent. I had a question for you. Don't mean to blindside you, but what do you think about the prospects for an applicant pool? Does the job climate favor us, or is it still just a really niche type of position that we're having a hard time filling, or what's your insights on that?
Well, we're actually running some of our staff through the testing process to get an assessment, just to make sure that we're at the right level. I don't want it to be too difficult for people to get in that don't have experience, but I don't want it to be too easy as well. So that's something that we're working on, and hopefully maybe change some of our numbers and scoring for that going forward. But I had hardly anybody that passed the test, and so I did allow a few of them to retake a couple sections to see if they would improve their scores on that, and they did. And then we had 5 go through the Select Advantage portion of it, which is actually no, a total of 6 went through Select Advantage, and that's kind of more the personality behavior for dispatch center that a lot of agencies use, and we had 2 that passed that, so that's how we only had the 2 applicants. So we're just kind of reviewing the process and making sure our numbers are in line with where they should be to get quality applicants in here and capable people.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, I have a question for Laura.
Yes.
Please.
Previously, during one of the downturns we had in the past, we ended up having an increased amount of applicants that did not follow through, and it was a kind of assumed that this was just people that were fulfilling requirements by looking for employment or documentation of that. Does that seem to be taking place this time? And if so, is it affecting staff time and resources?
So we had 34 applicants for this recruitment that we're currently in, and 33 of them were invited to the testing, and 11 of them did not test. So this time, just because I wanted to move forward and keep the process going without holding it up, so I moved the others forward who had done the testing, and I did not reach out to those who didn't test to ask why, to see if there's any reason. I think I'm going to do that going forward, just to see if if there were different factors or anything that maybe we can assist with or change, or maybe they just really weren't interested. I really don't know, but I would like to find out why people aren't following through with the process.
Well, something may sound really interesting and fun at first, and then you dig into it a little more and you figure out maybe it's not for you. I mean, I'm sure there's that. There's people that get jobs. They're looking for jobs, so maybe they found jobs. There's probably a lot of factors, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of variety of things, but I still am curious because it tends to be a good handful of folks that don't complete that first test. And that's very clear in our posting and the process, what the process actually is. So, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Well, actually, more of a concern. As all of y'all know, I've been harping on this forever about getting fully staffed plus some, and we never seem to get there. And I just wonder, are all the other 911 centers in our state having this same kind of trouble? I mean, we hear the same thing over and over and over about people not testing or choosing not to go through the process or whatever. But I think that there's got to be some reason, and there's got to be some, and I don't think it's pay or working conditions or that kind of thing. I feel like, we maybe need to put together some kind of a process that we maybe make it, and not saying hire people that are substandard, but I mean, how do we make it to where just the average layperson who's never dispatched or has never been a volunteer firefighter or police officer or anything like that, how do we reach out and get them interested and then get them prepared so that we can turn them into good employees and make them dispatchers? I just I get very frustrated hearing over and over and over again that no matter what it seems that we've tried, we can't seem to get staff.
No, I agree. I've been in the business for 23 years now, and I think a total of 8 months of that I've worked at a center that was fully staffed. It's not only a Columbia thing, it's an Oregon thing, it's a national thing. It's always just difficult to fill dispatch positions for many reasons. One of the things we're looking to do, I've got a meeting in a couple weeks with some of our dispatch staff, and we're going to start working on a bunch of different things, but one of it includes more recruitment type stuff, putting more information out there, education pieces of it, just to try and recruit additional staff. We did make up business cards and we gave to everybody to hand out. If anybody talks about, what do you do if they happen to wear their Columbia 911 shirt, and it has a little bit of information about Columbia, kind of the benefits to it, and how to find more information. So people are passing those cards out as well. So it's not unique to us. I'm 100% in agreement. I would love to see us full staff, and that's my goal, and that's why I'm on my 5th recruitment since I've been here, and they're time consuming, and I've tried to look at how we can shorten them, and we really can't because of all the steps we have to go through. But I'm obviously open to suggestions.
I have a feeling.
Well, I'm not suggesting I have the answers, but I do have to wonder why we don't have this kind of problem hiring firefighters or in most cases, not current market, but most time police officers, county road department workers, district attorney's office employees, other high stress, high impact jobs, and you tend to end up with waiting lists and lots of qualified candidates standing there. And what I hear and have heard for decades now has been that the 911 industry is so much different than all of these others that there's just no way to compensate for that. And I just can't buy that. But nonetheless, you've heard that argument a lot of times. But I just don't understand what we're missing, because I don't think that it's the candidate's fault. I think that it's the industry's fault.
Can I comment to
Yeah.
that? Henry? Is he there?
Yes, whoever that was.
Yeah, it's Bruce. Just to let you know, I think it's going to get worse. Our last firefighter test that is countywide had 4 applicants to it. And we used to beat them off with a stick, you know, and it was to 4 for the whole county. So I have a feeling that not only is the fire service going to have an issue, but I foresee your 911 dispatching going to have a lot of issues. I don't know why it is, you know, talking with people, they just really don't want this job, and a lot of people don't want to work in public service anymore. I hate to
Well,
say
I think some of that is understandable, and I mean, I anticipate we're going to see more of that in the police services, because as far as I'm concerned, I would never, in today's climate, encourage anyone to be a cop. But even though I know we all need them, but you know, whatever it is, whether we've just taken our perceived needed standards to a different level to appease attorneys or whatever it is, if we can't provide the service because we can't get people, we've simply shot ourselves in the foot. And I don't care which part of emergency services that is, but boy, I tell you what, it just always upsets me that we beat the hell out of our existing employees only because we can't fill our budgeted and approved positions so that everyone gets a fair break.
I agree with that.
And I think I'm going to jump in that rabbit hole for just a minute, only to ask, you know, as much as Henry has always kind of pointed out this continuous quest that we have for full staffing, on occasion, you know, I've brought up the question about the option of having a call taker position, because a lot of times we hear someone doesn't make it because they can't do fire or they can't do police, but they're good in the other 2 disciplines. And I know when I've asked about the call taker position, originally it was told that we were too small. This is Columbia County, not the other centers. And I believe a couple of years ago when we presented this question, it was looked at with a little more interest. Is this potentially a change in the floor layout that could be implemented that might help with the staffing situation? Or is it still to use management feel in our current configuration and levels that's not a viable option?
It's not off the table. It hasn't come up. I mean, other than when you and I originally talked about it, we haven't had any new hires that either weren't successful or weren't going to be successful. Our last employee that left, he just decided this was not the career for him. And so it wasn't a matter of him not being successful in the training program. So I think if we potentially got to that point where we maybe had somebody who we knew could do phones, that we could look at our options. I'm not opposed to anything at this point, but it just hasn't presented itself.
Thank you.
And I'll just
All right.
put an exclamation point on that. So I'm mostly familiar and deal with the UASI region surrounding the Portland Metro region. So there's 10 emergency dispatch centers that belong to the PDCC, and there's not one that is fully staffed. Clackamas County, CCOM, got very, very close, but then again, just as Laura mentioned, you hit that mark, and then for whatever reason, people leave, they drop out. And so that, again, that's including even the privates, the AMRs and the Metro West. Those dispatch centers are understaffed. It is a national issue.
Interesting. Are there any more questions for Laura? Thank you, Laura. And let's move on to Nathan, Mr. Technical Manager.
Nathan just stepped out of the room. He looks like he's tied up with somebody at the door, so we can circle back around to him if you'd like.
Let's do that. Yes, please. Let's head on into your report then, Mike.
Alrighty, so old business. Stand by here, getting my notes. Thank you. We're done with that. So, radio system. I'm going to skip over the first bullet point. That's in the Next Gen Radio Group. We have pertinent information regarding new business on that. Buxton, there's no updates on there. Dixie Mountain, we are working with both Day Wireless and M&I. That work continues. We've received all of our preliminary calculations for the new microwave shot from Dixie to the dispatch center here. Just yesterday, had a good meeting with M&I, and they've secured the frequency and are prepared to move on the licensing for that microwave shot to dispatch. At the same time, we're talking about continuing up and over the West Hills there from Dixie down towards Washington County's new 911 center. I'm preparing, I have another meeting with them Monday where we'll go over the final numbers for a quote. So next month, your March meeting, you'll see a request for expenditure for that microwave shot from Dixie just to here. The second part that we're talking about going over to the Washington County system can serve two purposes. Certainly we're talking about CAD. That's one more redundant pathway to maintain connection to the hub, which one of the hubs is Zatwaka. And so we could fly over air regardless if LTE and fibers are cut. That's a possibility. There's also the potential to hook our current and or future radio system, whatever that's going to be, via that link as well. But that will be a separate cost project, and I'm not planning on including that in the proposal for next month's meeting. But that is something we're looking forward to. So we're getting close for the Dixie. Clatskanie Mountain, nothing new from Washington State Patrol. U of O put in their seismic station. The microwave upgrade, we just talked about that invoice from M&I. That's the Green Mountain to Clatskanie. That is completed. We cut over on February 1st. There were no problems, no hiccups. In fact, it was timely because this most recent snow event, we would have had a far greater problem and countywide, I believe, if that diversified path was not there. The only thing that's not completed with that project, but it has already been paid for, is the decommissioning of the old equipment on both those towers and within the shelters. We delayed that because they fought snow just to get the construction completed. So they are scheduled to come out here, I believe, next week. That was our last conversation that we were tentatively scheduling decommissioning for next week. That will be done. Meisner site improvements. All we're doing right now is preliminary plans for construction. And that includes fencing, digging holes, a lot of concrete, rebar, transportation of the shelter, transportation of the tower. So that's all in discussion. We won't really see construction dirt turning until late spring, early summer, but I'll keep you posted on that. Tow service contracts. So last month I was invited to a meeting with a couple of different departments of Columbia County. having to do with, actually the topic started with tows regarding abandoned RVs. And so County Roads was on that call. There is a specific department within the county that deals with garbage, refuse. Can't remember the name of the actual department. But anyway,
That's our general
thank you,
department.
thank you. But that conversation evolved into the issue of everyone, law enforcement, the county roads, us, and tow vendors who are refusing to move abandoned vehicles. And there's some legitimate reasons that they have that they don't want to get involved in that. But it led to the process. What is the process to request tows? And it was a good, promising conversation. They recognized, the county itself recognized, that this is not a isolated issue for Columbia. It's not an isolated issue for Columbia 911, that this is kind of a global problem. It's actually bigger than most people realize, because the cities, the counties, and the state are all having this problem. So the outside of it is that we're getting into a deeper conversation about the entire process, and as a group, they're willing to help the 911 district with this relationship issue with the tow companies and lack of service. So how it's going to end, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball yet, but I'll keep you informed as we move through that process. Ambulance service areas. Cindy continues to work with finishing out some boundary issues. So we have a commitment from Clatskanie Fire to work with Ms. Birkenfeld to finalize their mutual agreement of those boundary lines. And we're waiting on Scappoose Fire to come to an agreement with Multnomah County for some disputed boundary issues. And that's the extent of our work on the ASA. I've updated the document as much as I can. It's been distributed. So that's that on the ASA. The district's security access control work, it continues. They're in the process this week of working on cameras. I don't know, have a guesstimate of the completion time, but it's an ongoing process. On your agenda, you see RQI renewal. We're going to skip over that for this meeting. We're still working on some options to bring back to you in a future meeting.
All right, that takes us into new business then.
Yes, sir.
Nathan's back.
Want to go back?
Oh, Nathan has returned. Would you like to?
All right. Yeah, let's hear what Mr. Hughes has to say.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. Your guys' iPads are still ready. Security project, we continue to migrate to the new system. Had a couple hiccups, but everything's coming together. Just trying to get the best cutover we can so that we don't have any dead spots in our security system during the transition. CAD, the new MDT software is going into production, or at least testing production, to see how the users like it. Network, we are moving CAD over to a SD-WAN solution, so that instead of having just the dedicated fiber to WACA, we will have that plus virtual connections that are all encrypted to WACA and Hopkins County. And having more connections will reduce any kind of internet outages. A couple weeks ago, Comcast went down and that impacted Verizon, AT&T, and it was just not great. So with that, we also signed up for Starlink. If you guys haven't heard about it, it's Tesla launching a bunch of satellites into the sky, low orbit. They're supposed to be pretty high speed and low latency, so we will be trying that out and seeing about adding that to our connection to Clackamas and Waaka to further improve our resilience connection to them. And it's also open, so if you guys don't have good internet at your house, go to the website and sign up. It's not too expensive.
I guess, Nathan, if you do the Facebook at all, there's the great Starlink on Scapooseronia Highway chat forum, where there's a lot of feedback of people stating their experience with Starlink and their reliability. And so far, it sounds like it's a good option. They've been very satisfied with it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I've just been watching the YouTube videos about it. Guys going out into the forest with no cell phone reception, getting 100 megabytes down.
Yeah, as long as you have a line of sight to the north, I think they said 60 degrees, which the center is wide open, all is good.
Yep.
Interesting stuff. Technology just continues to amaze. Anything else for Nathan? Any questions? Okay, back to new business there, Mr. Fletcher. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. So first up is the first budget meeting in preparation for fiscal year 21-22. Nancy, anything you want to say? We usually do it at our next meeting.
April meeting.
Oh, April, okay. Is there any conflicts? You know, the general has been that we start the meeting at 10 a.m. and then we break for lunch and then have the general business meeting following. Is there any conflict with anybody for the April board meeting?
That would be April 22nd.
April 22nd. Thank you.
I may have a conflict. I'm scheduled on shift that day. I'm more than happy to put in for time off. The problem is we have an unfilled position right now on my shift, so it makes getting time off very difficult. But I think that position should be filled come April.
Board meeting will be at 10, then we break for lunch, then the budget meeting's usually at 1. But it's all going to depend on COVID stuff. But that's the plan.
Unable to hear what Nancy was saying.
Nancy's clarifying the timing, so that on that day we would start the budget meeting at 10 a.m.
Board meeting.
I'm sorry, board meeting at 10 a.m. Thank you. And then we would break at lunchtime and reconvene the budget meeting at 1 p.m.
Okay, I guess we'll stay tuned on that. If Rob's the only conflict, I hate to see you have to take a vacation day to attend a meeting, but I'm on vacation right now. Can you tell?
It happens.
And Henry, are you okay on the 22nd?
Yeah, so far you bet.
Very good, thank you. So then attached to that is we're looking for your input, guidance, recommendations, suggestions for budget priorities. Don't need to know those now, but put on your thinking caps in preparation for that meeting. We too are in that process now, early stages of budget build out, and we are making our Christmas list of budget priorities.
Okay.
Moving on. The snow and ice event, I provided to the board an after action report, which is kind of walks you through what we were doing prior to the forecast, watching it, the steps that we were taking to ensure that we were as prepared as we could be. I think that document explains that we were watching the weather. We were even physically looking at our facility here if we're prepared. We knew the sites were as prepared as they could be. We knew we had good, clean fuel. They were buttoned down, ready to go. We reinforced and made sure staffing was adequate, made arrangements for staff transport to and from the center during the event, and then we wrote it out. And the report there shows that yes, we were busier on the phones. CAD events actually were lower than what I would call normal. And we used the comparison for the exact same weekend of this snow event to the same weekend from last year. And that, what was interesting was, of course, last February, this time we were deep into the throes of COVID. And so our true CAD events during the snow event was actually lower than we were last year with the COVID. And the only thing I can think of is people were hunkered down at home, and so there wasn't a lot of movement out there of the public. Maybe, I don't know, it's just speculative. But our telephone volumes, of course, went up dramatically. We were nearly 30% busier than normal. But with that, our performance, how well we performed with call answering, call processing, was exceeded national standards. So feel very good about that. The after action was what we came out of it like. There is some damage to the facility. It's very minor. It deals with the awnings, which we've had that issue before. We have issues with the gate again. Part of that was, again, snow on ice buildup. We don't want to derail the gate, so we had issues with that. And then the housing for the control panel for the opener, what the staff uses to get, pushes the button to get us in here into the campus, has historically been poor weather resistant. And again, this proved to be true, and actually it's still out of service and we're waiting for a part. As part of the security system upgrade, that will be fixed, and so hopefully we won't have this problem going forward, but that we're still dealing with that. The other thing that we did experience was radio disruption, and in that after action report is I hope is a detailed explanation of what we were experiencing, what the theories were during the event, the processes that we go through for troubleshooting, and then ultimately what the final result was. What did we discover was the issue? What caused that F1 radio here at this building to falter? It didn't completely fail, but the PL tone was dropping. We don't know. We have those radios all across the county, all of our sites. So it could have been Fire F1 as it was this time. It could have been Law 1 next time. Who knows? And we don't know why it had that glitch. It has not happened prior to that event. It hasn't happened since. And as I explained in that document, we have a process to troubleshoot, and we go from the most likely, most plausible cause for a problem to the least. And it is a methodical but time-consuming process. And part of our problem was we had very disparate signs and symptoms. So from you guys who work in the medical field, what is the chief complaint? Well, you get that and you follow the path to determine what the cause of the problem is, and that's what we did. But it was compounded with the fact that we had what's being told, I'm being told, is a historical 40, 50-year event between snow, ice, and wind, which does have impacts on RF. It does. We know our towers and antennas were snow and ice covered. That does have an impact on signal. We had disparate signs and symptoms that would lead a radio tech to investigate potential cause and effect. And we just walked them out, each path, until we could eliminate them. And that's when we found this F1 radio was dropping PL. So it's been fixed. What we did was scan that specific radio and basically built hot standby. We do have standby radios, spare radios, but they're just general radios. They haven't been programmed for a specific site. This one has been, so it's ready. If this thing acted up again today, we have a hot swap for it. The other option is to just preemptively replace it with a spare radio. We could do that. We have not done that because we're here in St. Helens, and F1, Fire F1 in the St. Helens and Scappoose area is the busiest call volume, and that's something you just don't want to disconnect and be dark for however long it takes. So if between Day Wireless and the district decides we want to go ahead and move forward, that will be a coordinated project to do, middle of the night type thing when low call volumes. Can I answer any questions? Hearing none, moving on.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead,
Who
Joe.
else is saying something? Just me?
Yes, sir.
I read the report, and I really appreciate that. While not satisfied with the service quality that our users experience, I'm definitely satisfied with your effort, the efforts of the team, and yeah. I went out and drove in this and was sorry I did. I mean, it was unlike any driving I'd done on Nikolai before, and I've lived out here all my life. So I just add that because here at only 300 feet, we had close to 11 inches, and then the combination of whatever the quality of snow that was, if you call it that, you couldn't even sled on it. Where we were at anyway. Yeah, I just think that it's an amazing combination of things.
It was interesting, and we weren't alone in our struggles. We had to deal with, while we have a contract with Day Wireless, and we are a priority customer, we're not the only customer, PSAP, that has contracts. And this is not just Day Wireless, this is every radio shop in the northern Willamette Valley and Columbia River Gorge was slammed. There are, I know Metcom is still today having problems that they're finding resolutions to regarding the storm. And that was true all the way up the gorge through the metro region, Lewis County, Cowlitz County, Clatsop County. So resources were thin, and it is what it is. We all in the PSAP world, rely on our vendors for emergency services. But and it works well because usually it's just us that's having a problem at this point in time on the clock. But this was a widespread, we were all having problems for the same reason, so it was unique.
I just wanted to add that I had the joy of a 72-hour shift that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And, you know, I had shared some of my observations with Mike, which lined up with his report. And I think part of it is the South County part got hit very hard because, as we know, our bald site often goes offline from snow load and trees and blocked microwave pads. And, you know, although Dixie Mountain, we're trying to get up and running, that still is not a transmit site. And so some of these issues could still reoccur. But I believe in the long-term plan, Mike has been working on trying to find another additional alternate site that would allow us to have a system transmit to fill in that gap here in South County.
That is correct.
So, Mike, yeah, the radio issue was one thing, but was there obviously the weather was affecting us as well, in addition to that radio issue, and other problems other PSATs were having were weather related?
Yes, they were. Yeah. You know, the way that weather front came in, we had those very strong east winds. I showed you on that NOAA graph, the closest NOAA weather station is Woodland. Those meters are sitting basically ground level. They are just at the top of their building, where all of our towers are mountaintops, or at least higher elevations, and in open air. And they were getting slammed from the east down the Columbia River Gorge, and as they hit the Tualatin Hills, the West Hills here, it turned north and was slamming Cowlitz and Lewis County. And so if you look at our tower sites, Bald, the district's office here, Green, Meisner, Columbia Heights, they were directly in the path of the storm front. So, and the other centers experienced that as well. It was a little different down in Marion County because they didn't have as much snow. In fact, very little snow, but they had a tremendous amount of ice. And so they had, you know, inch and a half ice on their antennas. Those fiberglass sticks were breaking. That happens. The other thing we contemplated, the issue was, especially as we started to warm up, you can coat those sticks, and while they seem rigid, if you have 50 plus mile an hour winds hitting them, they do rock just ever so little. And if you've ever driven in your truck or your car down the highway in very cold, wet weather, you ever see your car antenna just whip like crazy? Well, that's what they do on the sticks too, but very, very little. But it doesn't take a lot to crack the shielding if they have that much weight on them. So we did consider that there was water seeping into the shielding, which would cause problems too. We also suspected that the microwave dishes, because some of the symptoms that we were seeing led us to believe that we were having timing issues, microwave issues. So our radio system is a combination of two things. It's the RF, radio frequency, which is you're transmitting and receiving on, but there's also that subsystem, the microwave system, which keeps the whole system. We have a simulcast system. It keeps it in sync. So F1 here in St. Helens is the same transmit that Klatskanite and Miss Birkenfeld's hearing at the same time. So our thought was those big dishes, those big antennas, those are 6 feet. They can carry a lot of ice on them, snow and ice. And while they don't, you hope they don't move, again, a lot of weight on them, winds in the 50 plus miles per hour, if they get off kilter a little bit, and it doesn't take a whole lot, that you start having timing issues on your transmissions and receives. So we have to track all those things down, and that takes time and takes people to do it. So.
Any more questions, discussion on the snow and ice event?
No, I would just throw out there that, picking up where Mike just finished, if it is a timing issue, for the reasons he stated, currently because we are VHF and because VHF has such propagation, that has a huge effect countywide. Or eventually, if we do end up going 700 or 800, such timing issues would be reduced or be less impactful, more localized.
Right. Correct. Moving on.
How did I'm just going to say I know that according to your report we didn't have anybody miss time, and I wouldn't have faulted anybody for not being able to get in. Just the port, we had closed the office. People have been working from home as much as possible during the COVID anyway, but the limited office hours that we did have, we reduced. Our maintenance staff did still have to work on the marina and the airport, staff who's there. But yeah, we took a cautious approach. I was glad to hear it sounds like people were able to get into work okay, and hopefully make it home safely as well. So that's kudos to everybody for keeping the calls flowing.
And you know, we shout out to our local law partners, because we did have staff take advantage of having a professional driver transport them, and we appreciate that.
We did have.
Thank you to them for sure.
As well.
Yep. We if you missed that, Laura was saying we did have dispatch staff spend the nights here as well. Okay. Anything else I can answer? Moving on. Before you is a request for approval. As I mentioned in the cover letter there and in communications with you folks, I started this process late spring, early summer, recognizing that the board needed assistance in helping you to determine the best path forward for any new radio system. And I understood that you needed a professional, non-biased entity to provide you really education. And so I started the process of identifying different engineering firms that could satisfy that need. Then in the fall, we got serious and started meeting them directly to develop a true formal bid or proposal. So before you is a request for approval for a contract for federal engineering. The goal of these folks is to review our current system, what we have, where we have it, how well it works or not, the functionality of the current system, the tower site locations and conditions, a conversation about end user subscriber radios, known mobile and portable coverage areas and problem areas. The intent is for them to validate the processes that we have taken thus far, which is the RFI, the responses to the RFI, validating the interviews that district staff conducted, doing a needs assessment amongst the stakeholders. And then again, to take a look at the responses that we've received. There's basically 4 different proposals that are on the table. to look at those and evaluate them, the pros and cons of them, site locations, new site locations, because all 4 proposals would require additional sites, coverage, and an unbiased cost estimate. And then to wrap it up, to come back to you to give you, in their opinion, the best path forward for the district. So the firm is Federal Engineering, well-established, national workload. They have a lot of experience in Oregon specifically. Very good referrals. I think the justification is kind of self-evident. This is what we're trying to accomplish. They understand that. They understand that this is really the first phase for them based on their performance and satisfaction of staff and the board. There's the potential for a phase 2 and a phase 3. Phase 2 would include writing the actual comms plan for the county and this district specifically based on the recommendation that they're going to propose at the end. They would also assist in contract negotiations on whomever is recommended and approved by the board. And then if there's a phase 3 and they're still interested, that would be acting on the district's behalf for procurement and project management. But this is just for phase 1. And those are the goals that I've already outlined to you, and so their bid came in at almost $72,000, and we put in a contingency of 10%, so it's $79,170. The proposal is written with the realities of COVID currently, but they would prefer to do as much on-site as they can. It will depend completely on state rules and all that stuff, but everybody's encouraged because things are improving, so they hope to be here. So that price is firm. This proposal and this recommendation to you has been vetted via legal counsel. They had no issues with it, and they wanted to pass on to the board that you're within your rights to select sole source based on state statute and the district's purchasing rules. Any questions?
Mike, was there other bidders?
So I interviewed, get my notes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I asked the 2 that I was most familiar with and had the most experience in Oregon to provide us a formal bid proposal. Exact same parameters, expectations, goals, and end result. They're identical, but the price is not. So this is, what did I tell you? Basically $72,000 for phase 1. The other bidder was a little bit more at $280,000.
There's a little bit. I guess my thoughts are is that I wish we'd have done this process before we called in a bunch of vendors and did the earlier process. It seems like we'd be further along, but that's water under the bridge. I think that the only cautionary part that I would have in this is I think that what we need is this independent view, and I don't think that the independent view is to, quote, validate what we're doing as much as it is to truly do an analysis of what we have and what we want to accomplish and give us the best opportunity to do that. I don't want somebody, it pays $72,000 or even $72 to have somebody come in and just rubber stamp what we think is the right thing to do. So without any more data than we have, those would be my cautionary parts. Is when you're talking about education, I think we do need education, but we also need to know what our reality is, and not just what it has the best sex appeal today versus tomorrow. And so we've got to make the right decision for a 20-year at least project, just like our last one was. And I want these people to be working for the board to come up with what's going to be offering us the best service to the citizens of Columbia County, not just validating a process that we're already 3 years into. That's my, and as far as I'm concerned about the price, I don't really care as long as we get good counsel out of it.
That's the end goal, Henry, and they understand that while I use the word validating our process, what we have done to this point, they have every intention to going back and interviewing the stakeholders themselves, independent of what I did. They are going to look at each of those proposals based on the, whether it was Com Northwest, Codan, Motorola, and they are also proposing a fourth vendor to look at. They're going to take each of those proposals and run them through their own calculations and testing coverage areas, independent of what the vendor who provided us their quotes, they're going to do their own independent study to validate their findings and compare them to what the vendor has proposed. So I think what we'll come out with was a better product than what we have today. And that is the intent, that they're going to come back and give you a best case, and if need be to redo an RFP, they can help with that as well.
Well, I think that's appropriate only because, as all of you all know, in technology and communications, the 3 years that we've been goofing with this, everything has got stale and musty and covered with cobwebs from those initial proposals anyway. So if they're going to take this to the next level as far as going back and refreshing everything, based on what our true needs are, not based on what a particular vendor or a particular handful of vendors have to offer, that's the data that I feel like myself I've been wanting throughout this whole process and so far haven't received. Thank you.
I'd just like to add, too, that I think this might have gone differently had we seen 3 RFIs that were identical. I think that the fact that they all had variations on things is a sign that we needed to recalibrate and have, like we're doing here, at an unbiased look at those processes they went through, and I think we probably had a lot of good data to share with them to help them to get to those RFIs. But I like what you're saying, Henry. I wanted to add, I think it would have been a different story had we had identical responses on that RFI.
In agreement with all those comments, the other nice thing about this proposal, looking at it, is this vendor has done work in the area and is familiar with the systems used by Cresa, WACA, and BOIC. And as we've mentioned, an option would be to potentially partner up and join another radio system. I feel that this agency would be able to give us a real good detailed report on the pros and cons of our options due to their familiarity with the region and the current radio systems.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the contract with Federal Engineering in the amount of $71,972 plus the additional contingency as presented.
I'll second that.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract with Federal Engineering, Inc. for $71,972 with the contingency as presented. Further discussion? Mr. Holsey, you got anything to say here? Are you interested, or I'm just kidding? I just wanted to didn't want to gloss over you.
Bruce actually piped up to second that motion, but got overmodulated by Rob.
I can't see him, so I'm kind of missing him.
Yeah.
I will defer it to Holsey.
He's going to defer it to you that you seconded.
Okay. No further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Oh, did I hear something?
No, sir. Sorry, rustling paper.
Okay, it was my echo. I heard my echo there. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I was an aye as well. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, what else do you have for us, Mr. Fletcher? Was that it for director updates?
The only other thing I'm going to add is, I forgot to mention it earlier, working with legal on a new lease agreement with Day Wireless for the Columbia Heights location. And really the only sticking points that David and I are working on is, of course, the vendor wants a long-term lease. I understand that, but based on the fact that we may move to a different platform for a radio system, i.e. a different band, that site may not be in our best interest in the next couple years. And so I don't want to get tied to that site and then it be just a waste of money because it's not serving our needs. So that's really all we're working on, is the nuances of getting out of a lease early without paying a bunch of penalties. It's also, there's some work that we're doing because this district invested a lot of money in that site to develop that. We just want to make sure that we're protected with our investments on that. So I'll keep you up to date as we move through that process. And that's all I had. That concludes both new business, and I think within all of that, the director's report is complete as well.
Mike, this is Henry. Say, can you give us an update on the renovations and painting and flooring and all the stuff in the building?
Yeah, all that is completed. The flooring's all done, paint's all done. The data upgrades are done. Lighting, there's just really some very minor switch stuff that that's literally switch plates and those kind of things, is basically complete. And so the only thing that's really in play right now is the security and access control updates.
Don't worry, I got more projects for you guys.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, that's part of that budget priority thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Agenda items for the March 25th meeting. I have one thing I was curious, just in light of the snow event. Can you provide the board, or maybe just maybe a little insight to our business continuity plan? And I know things happen to work out okay here. I'm just curious what we may have in place. Just it doesn't have. You can even send it just by email to us. So that's easier. I know you said we followed steps and things. I'm curious about what our plan is, and if we have a written one, and if we can share it.
So we have a coop, yes. I'm just sitting here thinking there are portions that I'm sure there are portions that are shareable, but a lot of it is not, because it goes into the details of security and all sorts of things that there are some protected stuff on that. So, but let me look at it. I need to talk to Sean over at Emergency Management, because they're
I think a brief is fine too, Mike.
Okay.
I mean, just, especially if there's lessons learned, anything we can, gosh, hey, we had this once in a 50-year event. Is there something we can standardize that helps, or, maybe things help going off without the hitch, so.
Sure. Okay.
Any learning opportunities is kind of what I'm hoping to capture if it's relevant.
Sure. Okay, let me work on that for you.
Any other business? How about member comments? So you want to start, Henry? Are you have anything to say here?
I think I've said about enough. I just want to say that thanks to staff for all the extra work they had to do to get through the weather event that we had, and we'll be thinking about Nancy and Mary Jo as they head into the budget process. We're actively working on that here at the county, so look forward to that process as well. Thanks.
Mr. Anderson?
Rob, you're muted.
That's that space bar thing. Just dovetailing off Henry, thanks to staff for all the little extra hard work during the weather event, and glad everyone was safe.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Holsey?
I really like that after action review that you sent out, Mike. That kind of was really good. So
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's it, Bruce. I echo all of those statements. I found that to be very informative, and it put me at ease. Like I said already, while not satisfied with the quality of service that was out there, I feel we did our due diligence there, and you laid it out very well. So thank you and the staff for doing that. And by bringing up the business continuity, the COOP is no slight on any of that. I was just wondering if there's any opportunities for improvement, which I know you're always looking to do. So. That's all I have to say as well.
Very good.
And without any other comments from the members, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Sir.
Thank you.